You know, the story of the Titanic, you think you know it, right? But it's so much more than just a famous shipwreck. It's this incredible tale of ambition, technology, and just the raw power of nature. Today, we're going to do a forensic deep dive into its sinking. We're talking engineering, weird weather phenomena, and some surprising physics. Ready? Let's get into it.
So picture this. It's 1912. The RMS Titanic isn't just a ship, it's the biggest, most luxurious moving object ever built by man, a true floating palace. Her designers at Harland & Wolff gave her 16 watertight compartments, and the thinking was, even if 4 of them flooded, she'd stay afloat. I mean, this thing was the definition of confidence, a testament to human ingenuity.
So how on earth does this fortress of steel, this unsinkable ship, end up 2.5 miles down at the bottom of the Atlantic, on its maiden voyage, no less? It went down in under 3 hours. That's the question that has haunted and fascinated us for over a century. What went so catastrophically wrong?
Well, the truth is, it wasn't just one single thing. It was a chain reaction, a perfect storm of bizarre environmental conditions, a hidden flaw in its materials, and immense physical forces that nobody'd ever imagined the ship would have to endure. So let's play detective and look at the clues.
Okay, our first clue. Let's put ourselves up in the crow's nest with the lookouts. The night was clear, the stars were out, but there was no moon. So why did they only see a literal mountain of ice when it was right in front of them, way too late to do anything about it? This is where the story gets really strange.
The leading theory today points to a really rare optical illusion. It's called a cold air mirage. It happens when a layer of freezing cold air gets trapped under a layer of warmer air. That temperature difference actually bends light waves, and it can make the horizon appear higher than it actually is, creating a sort of false horizon.
And on that night, the sea was freakishly calm. That meant no waves were breaking against the base of the iceberg, which would have created a white line of foam and given it away. So instead, the iceberg was basically camouflaged inside this band of hazy, false horizon. And you know what's wild? One of the lookouts, Frederick Fleet, later testified that he saw a weird haze on the horizon just minutes before the collision. He couldn't figure out what it was until it was just too late.
Okay, so the mirage explains why they couldn't see it. But what happened after the impact? The collision set off a chain of events that subjected the ship to forces it was never, ever built to withstand. And that brings us to the second big mystery of the night: how this massive ship literally broke in half.
So, as those forward compartments started flooding with thousands of tons of seawater, the bow got heavier and heavier, pulling the front of the ship down. And as that happened, the stern, with all its heavy engines, was lifted high up into the air. In that moment, the Titanic stopped being just a ship. It became a simple machine, a massive, overloaded lever, balanced precariously on the ocean's surface.
When you look at it this way, the physics are pretty simple. You've got the load, right? That's the flooded bow, weighing an incredible amount. The fulcrum, or the pivot point, was the middle of the ship, right where it met the water. And the effort? That was the entire 15,000-ton stern, just hanging up there in the night sky, with gravity pulling it down. And we all know what happens when you overload a lever. It snaps.
I mean, just imagine the incredible stress on that hull. The upper decks were being stretched and pulled apart. That's tension. At the exact same time, the keel and the bottom of the ship were being crushed and squeezed together. That's compression. The ship's design was strong, for sure, but it was designed to float, to handle waves, not to support a third of its own weight completely out of the water. It was doomed.
But it wasn't just about the forces. It was also about the material itself, because when scientists finally recovered pieces of the Titanic's hull from the ocean floor, they discovered a hidden, fatal flaw that nobody could have seen in the shipyard.
So check this out. The steel they used back then, which was the best you could get in 1912, had high levels of sulfur and really low levels of manganese. Now, what does that mean in plain English? It means that in the freezing -2 degrees Celsius water of the North Atlantic, the steel lost its ability to bend. It became brittle. It didn't stretch. It shattered like a pane of glass. It was a critical failure, and it sealed the ship's fate.
The sinking of the Titanic was a harsh, brutal lesson. It was a story of overconfidence and tragic failure that absolutely shocked the world into action. And its real legacy is written in the maritime safety laws that keep people safe on the oceans to this very day.
So in direct response to the disaster, everything changed. The International Ice Patrol was created to track icebergs so this would never happen again. A 24-hour radio watch became mandatory on all ships.
because the nearest ship, the Californian, missed the distress calls because their operator had gone to bed. And of course, the most famous change, regulations were rewritten to require enough lifeboats for every single person on board.
So how effective were these changes? Well, let's look at this number. This is the number of passenger liners that have been sunk by an iceberg in the North Atlantic since the International Ice Patrol was established back in 1914. That's right, 0. A powerful and quiet testament to the lessons learned from that awful night.
In the end, the Titanic is more than a story about a ship. It's a timeless, cautionary tale about our own creations and our sometimes blind faith in them. And it forces us to ask a really important question. What are the icebergs of our modern world that we might not be seeing clearly? It's a question that's definitely worth thinking about.